Islam Makhachev versus Ian Garry is one of the more interesting main events in recent memory, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Islam Makhachev solves the puzzle of an Ian Garry, one of these newer generation welterweights who's just massive size, massive length, has a really well-rounded skill set, and how Islam deals with that. And I say all this, I still think Islam Makhachev is going to confidently and clearly win this one. I have little doubts. I'm not going to fucking pick against Islam Makhachev again. I got attacked by Dagestanis or probably Indians for saying he was going to lose to JDM. I'm not doubting this guy again. He is the fucking GOAT. He's trying to beat Anderson Silva's win record of 16 wins in a row in the UFC. And a lot of people have failed to do so. I mean, Kamaru Usman got the 15. He couldn't get it. Merab got the 14. Again, two guys who seemed like they were never going to lose. Islam Makhachev is the last man standing. And if he's able to beat Ian Garry, this jumps into like one of his three best wins of his career, right up there with Volk and Charles, and really can kind of further cement his case as the GOAT in the UFC. And Ian Garry, if he wins, he's going to be wrapping the belt around, you know, his wife's ex-husband's waist. And he's also kind of coming into this in an interesting place because he's hated by the vast majority of the fan base, and he's going to be booed pretty much anytime he does anything successful in this fight. So it'll be interesting to see, like, if Ian Garry wins, how are people going to feel? Probably bad, but Islam Makhachev has a lot to prove in this one. How can he deal with a newer gen welterweight? Really his first test, because JDM's kind of just a little bit bigger than him. Also, an interesting clash of kind of mindsets between these guys. Ian Garry's out here saying women should run the world, and I cried at Disney movies, and I'm a vegan, and I don't kill animals. I was cleaning the gutters out of my house, and I was feeling the gross leaves and the dirt, and it was disgusting. And then Islam Makhachev, you have him out here saying women, brother, shouldn't have rights. DJ, brother, why you ask wife if you go 2-3 years Dagestan? I don't even think Islam Makhachev has seen a Disney movie, and if he has, I bet sure as fuck he hasn't cried at one of them. Who is this brother? Ian Garry. He gay for crying to Disney movie 101 Dalmatians. Not that sad moody, bro. This guy not gonna be champ. That's kind of what we're dealing with here. But I am still really interested, because even though I have all this, you know, faith in Islam Makhachev to win this one by like a 49-46 unanimous decision, or maybe he ekes out a late finish, I still think Ian Garry does pose some interesting problems. So in this video, I'm going to kind of talk about the striking, the grappling, all the things these guys can do, and kind of how each of one of them could win this fight, and why I think Islam Makhachev is going to defeat Ian Garry. Let's kind of start with the grappling. You know, I think the grappling obviously is going to be an advantage of an Islam Makhachev. I don't really think that's a hot take whatsoever. Ian Garry's got good takedown defense and good scrambling ability and solid BJJ, but he's not an Islam Makhachev. The body lock and clinch scenarios, I will say, though, that's going to be where Ian Garry probably wants this fight, because he's just too big. I mean, Shavkat was struggling to get those body lock takedowns on Ian Garry, and maybe Ian Garry can even look for trips of his own in the clinch. Ian, like, you know, he isn't, I think his takedown defense gets a little bit overrated in the sense that I don't really think he's that insane when it comes to defending takedowns, you know, at the legs, below the hips, like traditional single or double legs per se. I still think you can get him there. And Islam Makhachev's kind of a weird one, because I feel like most of his, you know, best wrestling work is along the fence. It's not really traditional singles and doubles in the open mat, but he can still finish singles even when you initially stop the shot. We've seen him do that, you know, countless times against Dustin Poirier and Volk. Even when guys stop the initial shot, he could still finish. And it was funny looking back at kind of how I talked about Islam Makhachev versus JDM and all the breakdown I had done for that fight. It was kind of one of the first videos on this channel that I really, you know, dove deep into the main card, main event matchup. And I talk about how, you know, Islam, again, he gets all these takedowns on the fence, and he really isn't anything special in the open mat. And, you know, JDM's takedown defense sucks in the open mat, but he's really good on the fence. And as long as, you know, he's not getting taken down in the open mat and improve this defense there, he should be fine. And then Islam Makhachev, instead of really taking him down a ton against the fence, was just taking him down at will in the center of the octagon. And I will say another thing. People will bring up the Shavkat fight for Ian Garry. I think Shavkat is such a wildly overrated offensive grappler who was pretty careless with his entries. And I know he did take down Ian Garry, but those were in spots where he was shooting more traditional takedowns, and he was putting in Ian was kind of putting in Shavkat in some bad spots where he was throwing up submissions. I just think Islam Makhachev's way too high level of a wrestler for this, and a grappler overall. You know, Ian Garry will kind of play guard a little bit. He loves throwing up like guillotines and rear naked choke, where he'll just concede position at times and give up his back. You know, we saw that against Shavkat, and Prata's no cost. Prata's not taking your back and submitting you, but Islam Makhachev will flatten you out, and you know it's gonna be bad if he does that. And Ian will pick up the pace later in this fight and land some nicer combos, and just his striking will get better as it goes on. But I also could see this being a world where Islam Makhachev makes Ian Garry pay for just being a little bit over aggressive. And I do think Ian Garry has fairly good get-ups and ability to scramble. But in the Shavkat fight, again, he was very comfortable just playing guard and just sitting there and, you know, throwing a bunch of bullshit up that's not really going to work against Islam. We've seen people try and sit in the guard with Islam before. Charles did it and was trying to throw up like bullshit triangles and elbows, and that didn't really do any well. And Ian Garry was training with Charles Oliveira for this fight. I just could see him, you know, kind of getting frustrated at a certain point, and he tries scrambling out, and then Islam just makes him pay for it and subs him. Another thing that will be interesting with the grappling part will be Islam, he's snatching single legs a lot out in the open, where he just will hike you up, and he does kind of that crossbody takedown that he did a lot recently to JDM and Moicano. But Ian Garry is so tall that Islam is really going to throw that he's going to really try and throw that leg up and probably not be able to do it. And also, going back to like the Bilal Muhammad fight, he shot a lot of doubles on Ian Garry, where Ian would get underhooks and, you know, Bilal would try to transition to those single legs, but the height difference was just so much that Ian Garry could just frame off the head and would be fine. And Shavkat did a lot of the same shit, where Ian could not really defend Shavkat when he got below the legs, and it's not like Shavkat's some elite level offensive grappler. And Ian does do a good job, or maybe not even a good job, but he does do this a lot, where he'll drop his hands consistently against grapplers that kind of leave him open to getting cracked, but his head movement is very good. And like, he did that a lot against Bilal, but Bilal's, you know, he will sneak a head kick up in there, but not when he's like feinting off of a takedown to throw that in there. You know, Ian Garry will just you'll shoot into his arms and he'll get underhooks and he just shucks you off. The Dustin fight was funny though for Islam Makhachev, because he really did kind of come in there with a poor game plan. Now, albeit there was some weird stuff with the rehydration in that fight, and also I think he had staph, so it's kind of hard to see that. But it was like a weird one where he was shooting a lot of bad shots and, you know, kind of just getting it. He did outbox Dustin at points, but just trying to box Dustin Poirier, which wasn't the best idea. Now, it does seem hard on the surface to kind of, how is he going to track down Ian Garry? Because Ian Garry's movement is going to be really good in this fight. He loves staying on that back foot, just kind of poking at you at range, and kind of just point fighting you for the majority of the time. I think Islam Makhachev's kicks will be key in this fight, where, you know, Ian Garry stands so low against these wrestlers. Like you saw it against Bilal, where Bilal will shoot and Ian Garry's hips are going all the way back. The head kicks there, I saw MMA Che talking about this, where maybe you feint the takedown, and kind of just sneak a head kick up in there. Bilal really has no advantage to do that, or no chance to do that, because he sucks, and he really has no, you know, great ability to kick. I know Bilal will throw in like head kicks and body kicks in there, but it's nothing, you know, it's not going to happen. And even if he gets you down, he's not going to do anything. If Islam Makhachev's able to do that, where he's feinting, throwing in the head kicks, and then eventually Ian Garry's watching out for those head kicks, and Islam's getting his back to the fence and taking him down, like, he'll choke you out. Islam is Islam, man. I think feinting the takedowns and working to that head kick will be a really important thing for Islam Makhachev to do in this. And again, back to the kind of that body lock point of Islam Makhachev's not going to have a lot of success with those body lock takedowns. I just think if he gets those double legs, it's going to be bad. You know what I mean? Ian Garry is elite, and he is a hard puzzle to solve. But I do think if Islam Makhachev can not even consistently, because it's not like he's got to get one takedown, it's over. But if he has enough moments in this fight where he's getting to the hips of Ian Garry and taking him down, I think it's just going to be over. And in the striking aspect, maybe not over. I scrap that fucking part. In the striking aspect, Ian Garry's going to want to keep this on the feet majority of the time. It'll be interesting to see kind of the orthodox style of Ian Garry versus Southpaw Islam, where I imagine Islam Makhachev's got to have a better game plan, or a really good game plan in this one, where he's probably going with a lot of calf kicks, where, you know, Ian Garry puts a lot of weight on that front leg. Like, again, back to the Bilal fight, and I could see Islam Makhachev using kicks very well in this one. Knee stomps, oblique kicks will be big for Ian Garry. They broke down Bilal throughout the fight. They ruined Shavkat's career. I mean, again, Ian Garry celebrates that shit because he's a fucking scumbag. He had Shavkat's knees going in. Ian was even hunting those against a Muay Thai stance Prates, you know, and Islam's a little bit more of a bladed stance, and Ian Garry can definitely find those stomps. And Dustin Poirier landed his jab at times on Islam Makhachev, and Ian Garry, one of his best weapons is that jab. And Islam, I thought was still able to slip the jab and land big shots, which is funny, that fight, because he was staff riddled. When Prates started timing up Ian's jab, Ian Garry would do a really nice job mixing in that head kick. And Bilal, I will say, for as much as we like to shit on the Bilal for how he fought against Ian Garry, like, he did land a few times on him. I mean, Ian Garry did have to poke him in the eye, you know, at times to slow him down, and then he'd be like, I didn't poke him in the eye, he's a former champion. And Ian Garry has no pop, man. Like, again, I'm picking Islam Makhachev because I don't think there's a way Ian Garry can actually finish the fight. Islam is so good defensively, where he's outstriking Oliveira, Poirier, JDM, Volk, guys who in theory are better strikers than Islam. And I figure, like, even if Ian Garry is trying to chop inside calf kicks against Islam Makhachev, Islam will just bomb him, or really do a nice job countering with that straight left. He has nasty body kicks, which we've seen, you know, guys like Prates land on Ian Garry consistently. Ian will try and set up that jab because that's what, you know, one of his main weapons. But Islam does a pretty good job in general making, you know, making the jab hard to land against him. And Ian will be moving around, landing kicks throughout this one, but I figure Islam will land on the inside. He doesn't want this at range whatsoever. I figure he's going to be moving forward the majority of the time, trying to push Ian to the fence and land his takedowns. And Islam has underrated boxing. He can push Ian Garry to the back. And Ian Garry, back to the finishing point, he hasn't finished anybody since he head kicked and fluked our goat D-Rod, and that was pre-Mexican prison D-Rod. He does land that head kick on southpaw as well, so maybe there's a chance he could fluke some shit up. And, you know, he did it to Prates, not that he fluked him, but he can land that head kick on southpaws. I just can't pick against Islam Makhachev, though. You know, Ian will probably win the first 2 rounds, where he's doing a really nice job on the outside, just sticking and poking Islam. He mixes in some clinch work, and maybe it's a bit of a lower output performance from Ian, similar to kind of the Shavkat fight. Maybe there's a world where Islam gets too aggressive and he gets countered, but I just trust as the fight goes on, Islam Makhachev will just take over. He has the championship mindset. That's what I think when Islam Makhachev. You just, again, there seems like this aura around Islam here. He just won't lose. You know, I picked against him before in the past. In this channel, it's only happened once. I did it with the JDM fight. I tried to get cute. I think Ian Garry has a better chance than JDM does, in hindsight, of beating an Islam Makhachev, just because of the size, and he's a better grappler. There's a multitude of other things. I just can't pick against the guy with the pedigree of Islam Makhachev. I just think he's going to win this one, man. I think a lot of people have talked about this fight and kind of given the Lucas Tracy-esque breakdown, where I just think he's going to get him, man. He's just going to get his takedowns, and that could very well be true. I do think it will be difficult for him at times, at least early on. I could definitely see the first round Islam's getting a little bit frustrated with the movement and the size of Ian Garry. But I really do trust Islam to figure this one out. He always comes in with great game plans, aside from the Poirier fight. And Ian Garry's elite, and he's a tough puzzle to solve. But as long as Islam Makhachev's closing the distance effectively and getting Ian Garry to the fence, and, you know, Islam Makhachev's best when he's getting you to the fence and taking you down there, he's going to win this one. And one takedown won't be end all be all. Ian Garry's got very solid get-ups for the most part and has good takedown defense and big reach and size advantage. Like, he's going to give Islam Makhachev problems this one. But again, Islam's just too good. He's too good of a wrestler. He's too good of a grappler. And Ian Garry could find success early on. But Islam will find his jab. He'll be finding his kicks. He'll just figure this one out. He can outbox you because of just how good the wrestling threat is. And Islam won't necessarily chase subs. He's fine just kind of smudging you if he wants to. And I do think he will be a little bit more motivated in this one to get a finish, just because I don't really know if he was truly proud of his performance against JDM, but he has real patience and he has real strength. And he's just going to get Ian Garry. Again, it all goes back to Lucas Tracy, man. There's a championship pedigree with Islam Makhachev that I don't know if Ian Garry has yet. And I don't think Ian Garry winning would be the worst thing whatsoever. People are going to talk about, we don't have any superstars. Oh, no. Fuck Ian Garry, he's a cuck. Some of that's a legitimate point, but Ian Garry, like, at the very least, I'll say this about him. He is kind of a polarizing figure because nobody really likes him. I think he will be at least fairly active. He wants the Prates, rematch because they're kind of friends too. They want, we want to see Carlos Prates versus Ian Garry again. If that were to happen, if Ian Garry's beat Islam, I want Carlos Prates versus Ian very soon. Then Carlos Prates is the fucking champion because we're nuking out Ian Garry. Either way, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if Ian Garry wins, but I do want to see him choked out unconscious. I do think it would be funny / I'd rather Islam be the champ than fucking Ian Garry. If somebody's going to beat Islam, let it be Carlos Prates or somebody. You know what I mean? Either way, I'm taking Islam for the experience, the grappling advantage, the underrated boxing. I think he will be able to push Ian Garry back to the fence enough to win this one and get his takedowns there. Maybe he gets a late submission. I think he's going to win 49-46. Again, Ian Garry posed a lot of interesting problems with just his well-rounded game, and I think he's going to give Islam some problems in that first round or two, but I think Islam will just land his takedowns as it goes on further and maybe get a late submission. The rest of this card is garbage. This is all we have to look forward to. That's kind of my breakdown on Islam Makhachev versus Ian Garry. I'm back on fucking Team Khabib's side, so any of those Dagestani/Indians that attacked me for picking JDM, I'm back. I'm back on Islam's side. I'm back rooting for the fucking GOAT. We're going to cement our GOAT case. We're going to beat Anderson Silva's 16 fight in a row win streak in the UFC. And this is going to be added into our top 3 of best wins ever. So if you're new here, remember to like, comment, subscribe. The doctor is signing off.